Welcome again to the Let's Be Frank podcast, where home improvement legend and metal roofing expert Frank Farmer talks about how you can improve your sales and customer satisfaction and grow your metal roofing business. Let's Be Frank is brought to you by Metal Roofing Consultants, training successful metal roofers nationwide. Learn more at metalroofingconsultants.com. And by Isaiah Industries, in the business of manufacturing the very best permanent roofing solutions for homes across North America and around the world. Learn more at isaiahindustries.com. Today on Let's Be Frank, the all-important topic, sales slumps. Where do they come from? How do you deal with them? Here's Frank.
So Jim, part of the challenge is sales reps will get on a roll, and they start to believe it's all about them, and they have a process that they're going through, but all of a sudden things start going a little bit sour with those sales reps, and they hit a slump. And there's a lot of things that cause slumps with salespeople. Okay? And the first big one is attitude. And attitude, they're going along, things are just great, right? But then they change a few things in presentation, and they get away from systems, they get away from programs, and then people question why they're not having any sales, and then they want to blame salespeople, blame leads, or blame the company, or they're not seeing the right customer, things like that. But it all comes down to an attitude change that starts to happen. Mm-hmm. That attitude change causes them to have an inability to hit their weekly goals, their monthly goals. They end up having higher and higher stress internally, and now they're really way off in the ditch. Okay, and I talked to sales managers about this, and they don't want to address that salesperson because he's a good one. He can generally pull out of these things. He's been around this game a real long time. Attitude slumps need to be addressed hard.
Really?
Yes. The moment you see it, it needs to be addressed with a salesperson.
So let me ask you a question here. Does this, when a guy's on a roll, because obviously the slump follows usually a good period, right? A couple, 3 sales drop in, things are going good. Is there an element in the sales guy's mind who's like, I got this?
Yes, there is. It is, and it's an arrogance, I'll call it. And I don't mean that they're a bunch of arrogant people, but the arrogance that the salesperson goes to is they forget that it's the system that got them where they're at.
Yeah.
And the arrogance is, it's me. I did it. Look how great I am. And they'll even tell you about that. Okay? But then they start getting away from the system, and everybody else becomes the blame. And that's what that brings on that slump, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
How do you spot a slump? How do you spot a slump that's about to happen?
Okay, you have a sales rep who's on a run, and he's closing, let's say, 3 out of 7 leads, 3 out of 8 leads that he's got for that week, maybe 4, and he has in that 4-week period, he may have himself on an average of 2.5, 3 sales a week, putting some decent numbers on the board. Yeah. And then he has 1 sale, and then next week he has 0 sales. Okay. And he just says, man, he just come off this big month, right?
Yeah.
Made a lot of money in our business. It's not uncommon for a guy to make $25,000 in a month. So salespeople will they get their value based on their paychecks, and how big their checkbook has gotten. So those bad slumps start with, I've got enough money, the intensity level starts to drop. I'm going to make it to the kids' baseball game, so they shortcut a lead just a little bit, and my gosh, they got a sale there. Well, maybe I can do that all the time. And they start these negative or bad habits. Okay. And pretty soon they're gone a whole week. They haven't had a sale. Now they're on week 2. Good sales managers start to see it when it drops the very first week to 0. Some will intervene when they start seeing that come off, and they start having that low week right after that strong 4, 5, 6 weeks that they had in a row.
Is that what's behind the weekly sales meeting and training? It's not just a sales meeting. I mean, you're training every week, right?
Yes, we do. We train every week. Our sales reps are minimum of 2 hours per week in office, and we're able to measure what's going on because we're face to face. We went through the pandemic and we were forced to train via Zoom. And although the training material put out can be the same, receiving it is not the same because you have every distraction in front of that salesperson. Their phone's off to the side. They may have their computer split screened into something else that's going on.
Yeah.
And you don't get to see what's happening. When you have them in front of you, you have the ability to see something's really bothering Bob. And you have the opportunity to pull them off to the side. It's those small conversations that you have that keep Bob on track.
Can't do that on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So professional athletes getting a lot of at bats, get a hitting streak going. That's got to be part of it, right? Is you're in activity. You've got stuff going on all the time.
Yes.
You're getting up and you're making contact. So what happens when the activity slows down a little bit? How are you dealing with that?
Well, that's one thing I always find when I'm dealing with a guy in a slump. First of all, I'll handle that not in a group. I'm going to handle that one-on-one.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to tell him, here's what I noticed. And I noticed that your sales have slowed up. And I noticed that your activity has slowed down. To which they always say, no, not really. Okay. Because they truly don't see it. And then I just simply ask some questions. So tell me about the stuff that you have in your pipeline. Tell me about what you did yesterday, what you did the day before, and what you did on Monday.
Okay.
What'd you do?
Sure.
And they're going to talk about their leads. I say, okay, so how many customers did you drop in? How many jobs did you visit that were being installed? Tell me about your activity. How many proposals are you putting together for churches or commercial? And generally it comes up with goose eggs.
Oh, okay.
And they start to say, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Heads out of the game.
Right. And then we've got to talk a little bit about, so what's caused this? And you got to be very careful as a sales manager, because sometimes when you sit down to talk about the slump, you're talking about the business. It's best to talk about them first and what's going on in their life. And you might learn some things. Well, my wife was just diagnosed with cancer. Well, that's going to be a whole different approach. This guy might need some time off, so you can talk about when he's working, and when he needs time with his family. We want him to have time with that family.
Yeah.
So you got to find out all the circumstances before you come to an assumption that he's just deciding to screw off.
Okay, but there are also times when just some bad habits come along. They start getting incorporated maybe, and it's not as sharp. Maybe that presentation isn't as sharp as it has been. What are you doing there?
First thing is we have them tape a presentation.
How do they do that?
A small recorder in their pocket, microchip recorder. Pop the chip out, load it in the computer, send it to me.
Okay.
So we can start to listen, and then I can do it via Zoom. I put the guy on the other end. Doesn't need to drive to the office. Say, okay, I think we've picked up a few things here that we can help you with. Oh, great. And this is going to be an easy fix. They say, oh, fantastic. So I'm going to let you listen to this segment of your questioning up front, because we do a survey up front to find out what the customer's needs and wants are. And I want you to tell me what you hear. Okay. And so as they're listening to themselves, they say, I can't believe I'm talking that much. See, it's not that they don't want to fix their problem. They don't know how. And even if they did listen to that without me, they would say, yeah, everything sounds pretty good. I'm doing the job right. But when you stop and you can point out things, here's where you talk. Listen, you talked right over Mary. See, Mary asked you that question. Oh yeah, I hear it now.
Okay.
So we give them realization. Okay. If they need time off, we're going to give them time off. But we need to get a lot of role playing. We'll put them in the car with somebody else and get them around activity again, and ask them to increase the activity. Give them very specific activities that we want them to do that not only keeps them busy, but gets them motivated to do something, because they start feeling down about their lack of production.
Sure.
And it always comes back.
One of the most complex and obviously the most important part of any sales visit is going to be closing. What do you see when things slip on closing a little bit, and how do you correct those things?
Yeah. They start setting themselves up for a callback, where one call close. And so they quit asking questions.
Oh, they kind of build it into what they're doing accidentally?
Yeah. Well, they get to the end, and instead of following the system, they get off track from following the system. And the customer says, "Now, Bob, up front, I told you we weren't doing anything today." When somebody's in a sales slump, their confidence level is much lower. So they tend to back off. And they set that second call up. Okay. We'll find also when people are in slumps, they'll do anything to try to get out of that slump once they recognize they're in it.
Oh.
So they go to a house and there's supposed to be a husband and wife there. And so the husband isn't there and they need a sale, and they'll practice. They literally will do a presentation for the wife, try to sell her.
Okay.
And understand that anytime they are going to sell her, it's probably going to cancel. It's probably going to kick.
Sure.
You can't imagine the husband coming home when he thought the risk would be $15,000, find out she spent $50,000.
Yeah.
Well, she was flipping nuts.
Yeah.
We didn't have the same information as her. Okay. I find also that when somebody's in a slump, where they're in a slump is they're off their game of creating emotion. They're into presenting features and benefits, and then they get into price. And it all becomes price, payment. That's all on the logic side of the brain. And when that happens, you can't close sales.
So go into motion just for a minute. What are the emotional cues that you're looking for feeding into the process?
Okay. So when we're selling solutions for the customers. And we've gotten them in an emotional state of mind through going through inspections that they're doing with us. And they soon realize that they got some serious problems here that they didn't think they had, that were hidden. So the emotions are high. So before we present price, we're going to say to the customer, now we're going to be talking about taking care of that problem that we've seen up in that attic. You've got that mold over there, that vent, that's a nasty situation. Here's what we said was the solution for that. You're going to need some insulation over there. And then when we get over to this part, we're going to replace these boards, and we go through the whole thing. So what this is going to do for you is you're not going to get those hot spots in your roof anymore. So you're not going to make ice down at that edge. Okay, it's going to save you X amount for utilities, and maybe you can take that money and you buy yourself a boat. Okay, well, whatever that customer was dreaming about. Everybody hates to waste their money.
Sure.
So when we can present solutions that they have extra money and fix their problem, give them peace of mind. We try to find out how long they've had this problem going on in their head. We get rid of those problems. Okay.
So I know this is probably a topic for a whole other episode, but I want to touch on it briefly. The guys that you work with then on your sales team, you've got to be looking for an element of trainability. There has to be a quality with a guy that's going to join your team that's going to say, yeah, I want to learn this, and I want to learn to do it right so I'm successful. How do you find that as you go through the process?
Absolutely great question. We look for driven individuals. We look for those who care, who have some morals, who have some values. Okay. The wrong thing for a salesperson to say when they come in front of me is, "Oh, I won't need all that training. I know what I can do." Okay. Well, he's not going to work here.
Okay.
So yes, they have to be trainable. So we look for a guy, what we call a high D, highly driven. We look for a high I, and that is the person who has the ability to inspire.
Okay.
Once we have those two characteristics, then we look for, can they do the job, and will they do the job?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Our sales guys are going to drive 40,000, 50,000 miles a year. So will they drive those kind of miles for success? So we'll simply ask a question during the interview that we've got several different types of jobs here. Some don't require as much driving as others. What do you prefer, driving or not driving? Well, anybody who's successful in in-home sales knows you got to put the miles in.
Yeah.
So if they say, well, I'd prefer not to drive, they don't even have the experiences that you're looking for here. And to try to convince them that they can drive 50,000 miles a year doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. So can they do the job? Will they do the job? Do they have the right personality? The last thing is, do they have the chemistry to fit our sales organization? Or are they a prima donna that's going to come in and destroy and undermine everything that's here among this team?
Okay. And you know what? I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about related to building a team and hiring, and we'll pick that up in another episode. But this has been excellent. So 4 causes of sales slumps and how to deal with them. Thanks. And we'll end this edition of Let's Be Frank right there. Thanks for listening. Let's Be Frank is sponsored by Isaiah Industries, in the business of manufacturing the very best permanent roofing solutions for homes across North America and around the world. Learn more at isaiahindustries.com. Let's Be Frank is a production of Metal Roofing Consultants, training successful metal roofers nationwide. Learn more at metalroofingconsultants.com.